We have a story coming out of Minnesota where there's threats of multiple schools within a district of having threats that had to involve the FBI. All right, guys, today's episode, we're going to be covering a threat to a bunch of schools in Minnesota. What kind of a threat? I don't know. All I know is that it was enough of a threat that it got the FBI involved and they shut down an entire school district in Minnesota, which affects 30,000 children. And it's not getting enough media attention, in my opinion. Like, it is being way too undercovered. I feel like, considering the current events, we might want to be covering it just a little bit more than it's being covered. We're going to get into that. I'm going to break it down step by step why in my gut something about this situation just doesn't feel right. Knowing everything that we know that's going on right now, something just deeply doesn't feel right. And I don't want to sow seeds of fear. I'm just informing people because it just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right about this. And I hope and I pray that this is just, hopefully it's a prank or whatever. Um, I I really hope that this is an empty threat. But in the event that it isn't, I'm going to take you through this step by step as to why I'm feeling uneasy about this situation. I think the fact that it's not being talked about nationally is the number one thing that makes me a little bit scared. It seems a little weird. It's like, why is this not all down my timeline right now? Why is this not the only thing that people are talking about right now? The fact that it's being like suppressed in a way is weird. Anyway, let's get into it.
The FBI is now investigating the troubling threats that shut down one of the state's largest school districts today. That district encompasses cities like Rosemont, Apple Valley, and Eagan. They canceled class for nearly 30,000 students. Reg Chapman's in the newsroom with new details on this investigation. What's happening, Reg?
Well, Frank, the police departments in all three of those cities worked with Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the FBI to determine the voicemail threats received by ISD 196 came from out of state. And based on that investigation, they say they don't believe the threats are credible and do not pose a danger to the community. Now, police are confident that it is safe for students and staff to return to school tomorrow. And they also explain why the decision was made for the whole district to close, saying, quote, because we were alerted to these threats in the early morning hours, investigators did not yet have the time needed to determine where those threats came from or whether they were credible. With students and staff preparing to arrive, ISD 196 made a decision to close schools out of an abundance of caution. Now, if you remember, in December, the same district was forced to cancel school after a 16-year-old boy made a threat. That boy was charged with 4 counts of threats of violence. In today's case, no word on a motive or where exactly it all came from, Frank.
All right, keep us posted, Reg. Thank you.
All right.
She says if you don't wear
but
grade
Oh
school.
my gosh, it's grade school.
I find it to be weird, okay? I find it to be very weird that you have the news station, okay? They're saying, "Oh, it's not credible because it's out of state." So, we're not there's no reason to take this serious. It was an out of state threat. So, you can go back to school tomorrow, whatever. Okay. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I just want you to remember that. Okay? They shut down the entire district. This wasn't just one school or a couple schools. Like, no, they received a voicemail, several voicemails. I believe it was several, or maybe it was just one voicemail, but the voicemail was for multiple schools in this district, if not all of them. This district will, it has 30,000 children total. Okay, there's a lot of kids in this district. It's the biggest one there. Okay? If they felt the need that it was credible enough to shut things down. And keep in mind too, they're not telling anybody what the threat was. They're not saying that it is it's a shooter threat, it's a bomb threat. They're not saying anything. They're just saying there's a threat, but it was out of state, so we're saying it's not credible and everybody can go back to school and go on their merry way tomorrow. And I'm just like, "Excuse me? Excuse me, if my kids lived there and it was like there's a threat that they can't figure out, you know, what it was, or they're not telling me what it was, that multiple schools were threatened." I don't know, guys. Like something just feels off about that. Because for the FBI to be involved, okay? And keep in mind in the video they said there was a threat a few months ago where a 6-year-old was sorry, I can't talk today. A 16-year-old was involved, and the police department took care of it, and that I think they said they got charged or whatever. But the FBI wasn't involved. Why is the FBI involved in Minnesota's local school district? Why? And why is this not being talked about more? Okay? I'm going to stop here before I get ahead of myself, but I just want you to know where I'm at so far. Okay? You guys know from my last video, I told you I was going to take a little bit of a break and step away for a couple of reasons. Number one, I needed to learn how to use the X platform. And I'm going to be real honest when I tell you guys, I'm still learning. I will probably always be learning. X is a wild place. I'm not going to be able to go into everything about X in this episode because right now I think that it's way more important to talk about this threat going on right now. Um, but outside of that, I'll probably make a separate episode, and it's probably going to be included in these episodes because I'm finding a lot of information there. So, with that being said, Joe Kent, he was our director of national counterterrorism, and he resigned. President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 24, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood better than any modern president how to decisively apply military power without getting us drawn into never-ending wars. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and by defeating ISIS. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift recovery. This was a lie, and is the same tactic that the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times, and as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife, Shannon, in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we are doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip further toward decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation. Joseph Kent, Director of National Counterterrorism Center. So, I just have to say, that's very profound. It's very profound and it's very telling. And it's just, that sometimes there's just no words, for things. But I would like to publicly announce that Joe Kent is a patriot. Appreciated, and you can tell that this is a person who makes their decisions based off of what is right and not what is easy, and that's commendable. And we should all aspire to do the same in our everyday lives. But with that being said, my unprofessional opinion, my gut tells me, hey, maybe we should listen to the guy who's been deployed 11 times. Maybe we should listen to the guy who knows what he's talking about, who's been there, whose wife was there, who lost someone there, who knows the real implications and dangers of war. Maybe we should listen to that guy. Maybe, just maybe he might know a little something. I'm just saying. Trying not to get upset. This is going to be a really difficult episode for me to make, guys, because this is serious. This is really, really serious. This is not a game. And things are getting weird. And I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not gonna, I'm not a vigilante. I'm not, gonna go get on a horse and go riding towards the Capitol, but I feel like somebody has to say something. Seeing these reports in Minnesota and not seeing it just be blasted down my timeline, like, people need to know this. If something happens in Minnesota, if something happens, we don't know what it could be. We don't know if it's Iran. We don't know if it's a false flag. We don't know. But let me tell you what we do know. We do know that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked right now. They're not letting the US bring their oil through. And as a result of that, the US is having to put boots on the ground, which is extremely unfavorable, despite what they're telling you. Despite what they're telling you, I know there's a ton of propaganda. The news is saying, oh, everybody's in favor of this. I promise you, if you step outside of the bubble that you're in the echo chamber that you're in, you will see that that's not the case. Most people do not want their sons and daughters to go die for Israel. Okay? I'm just in a war that we started that was unnecessary to start. Per the expert who just said that. Like, the experts are resigning because they cannot morally stand by that type of a decision. Now that we have the Strait of Hormuz blocked and our oil can't get through, which means we can't get it to our allies, Donald Trump is, he needs to ask people for help now. He's trying to get other people involved in his war because now he needs their help to get the oil through. And they're all saying to go skip rocks, basically, is what they're saying. They don't want to get involved in his war. As you guys remember, we took out the Ayatollah. Okay, so the official did not clarify whether the younger Khamenei, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Khamenei, who has not yet appeared in photos or on TV since being named last week to replace his slain father, had attended the meeting in person or remotely. The Strait of Hormuz, a transit point for a fifth of the global oil trade, remains largely closed as Iran threatens to attack tankers linked to the U.S. and Israel. Oil prices have soared. The U.S. has given shifting rationales for joining Israel to attack Iran and struggled to explain the legal basis for starting a new war. Underscored by the Tuesday resignation of the head of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center, Joseph Kent wrote in his resignation letter to Trump that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Most U.S. allies in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization have told Trump they don't want to get involved in the conflict, he said on Tuesday, describing their position as a very foolish mistake. Because of the fact that we have had such military success, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did, Trump wrote on social media. Yeah, okay. He singled out Japan, Australia, and South Korea as if that's supposed to help. So now, like, they're like, yeah, no, that's not our problem. Nobody told you to go do that. You're on your own, pal. And you, like, knowing that you need their help, instead of, like, being nice, you double down and, like, we never needed their help. Like, at what point? I mean, at what point do we have some type of, like, I don't even know. There's no words. Like I said, there's just certain things where there's no words. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on how we should handle war. I never asked to be in this war. Okay? I don't want to be in this war. I hate that I'm even having to talk about this war. I hate that I've been anticipating the fact that we might be going into this war because it's been like kind of soft launched for the last who knows how long, and now it's finally here. Um, I hate that they're going after people like Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk in order to be able to continue to spread their propaganda so that people will support this war. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said in an interview that nobody was ready to risk the lives of their people in protecting the strait. So apparently the only people who should be willing to risk their lives is US military men and women. Our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, our moms and dads have to go fight to open up the strait. All right, guys, let's take a look at this.
Since an explosion or blast at a girls' school in Iran, the U.S. military has been investigating what happened and whether the United States may have played a role. And what Reuters has learned from discussions with U.S. officials who spoke to us on condition of anonymity is that it looks increasingly likely, it looks probable that the U.S. Military was carrying out a strike on that location.
The strike was on the first day of the U.S. Israeli operation targeting sites inside Iran. I think it's very striking because it was a girls' school, and by some estimates, including Iran's ambassador, um, about 150 girls may have been killed in the strike itself.
No final conclusion has been reached from the investigation. The U.S. Military Central Command stressed that the investigation was still ongoing, and it said it would be inappropriate to comment on the investigation while it's in course. At the same time, out of the White House, we heard from the press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, that the U.S. it doesn't indiscriminately bomb anyone.
An incident like this would really be one of the worst ones of civilian casualties caused by the United States, if confirmed, in the Middle East.
If this is confirmed that the United States had a role in this strike, it could have major political repercussions for President Trump, especially as he's trying to gather support from allies for a war that Democrats are saying is a war of choice. Having U.S. support and international support behind the United States for this campaign is a big question going forward, and one that is politically fraught for Trump ahead of the midterm elections later this year.
Okay. I just want to come out and effectively say that no one, and I mean absolutely no one, cares about the midterms right now. The only people that care about the midterms are the same people that are rooting for us to go and do this war where we are now. This report is from March 5th. I do believe that it has been confirmed that the US was involved, and not only were they involved, but they were the ones like who bombed them, because we are the only, we supply the Tomahawk missiles. It was bombed by a Tomahawk missile. So with the US bombing 150 girls at school, we have a story coming out of Minnesota where there's threats of multiple schools within a district of having threats that had to involve the FBI. And it's not being talked about, which is weird because it's like, why you would think that people want to, like, this should be the only thing that people are talking about right now. There's threats being made to multiple schools. Multiple, not just one, multiple schools. They shut down an entire district, the largest school district in the state of Minnesota. They had to shut it down, and the FBI had to get involved. This comes after the US has reported to have bombed 150 school children. And we know because the Strait of Hormuz they're blocking it. And our allies are staying out of it. We know that they want to put boots on the ground, and they need a reason to put boots on the ground. I'm not going to speculate on what that means or what that could mean. Okay? I'm laying out the information. You guys need to connect the dots. And you need to ask yourself, if something happens, what does this mean? Why is there these threats being made and it's not being talked about? Why is this not? I mean, I understand maybe they just don't want people to be panicking. They don't want people to um be more afraid than they need to be. I understand that, but their only reasoning for saying that this threat isn't credible is because it came from out of state. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure the missile that hit the little girls' school in Iran came from out of country. It came from out of country. But we're supposed to, think, oh, well, if a threat came from out of a different state, then we're fine. It's not a credible threat because it's from out of state. Excuse me? Well, somebody should go and tell Iran that I guess the school didn't actually get blown up and it wasn't actually a credible thing because it was from out of the country. Make it make sense. No, that makes no sense. And the fact that they're even involved at all, and the fact that that's their reasoning for opening everything back, and mind you, they're not telling anybody. There's no updates, there's no nothing about what the threat was. Like there's no context. It's just that there was a voicemail with a threat threatening multiple schools. They shut the schools down for one day and then they say it was from we looked at it, it was from out of state. Everyone's fine to go back to school tomorrow. Something just doesn't feel right to me. And I could just be paranoid. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Why wouldn't I be paranoid when my government has been lying to me my whole life? Why wouldn't I be paranoid when we have situations like this?
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one
For the information that we have
in the files.
in the case file.
Okay. Now,
All right. Okay. Then it comes out high profile U.S. real estate brothers convicted in sex trafficking case. Oh, yeah. Who are those? Tal Alexander, 39, Oren Alexander, 38, rose to prominence from their sales of luxury real estate properties in New York and Miami, along with third brother Alon, 38. A jury found all three guilty of sex trafficking by a jury in New York. Okay. Well, guess what? Those three brothers were also tied to the Epstein files. They're in the Epstein files, guys. And now they're being tried as sex traffickers. And we're supposed to believe that Epstein didn't traffic anyone to anyone other than himself. Yeah, we're supposed to believe that. And now I'm supposed to believe that when the FBI says that there is no credible threat to these schools after they were shut down, 30,000 students. They shut down the whole district, the largest district in Minnesota. They shut it down because they thought the threat was credible enough to shut it down, and to the point where they called the FBI. The FBI had to get involved, you guys. And then the FBI comes out and they're like, "Yeah, well, it's not credible. It was the threat came from out of state, so we're all good." I'm sorry, is that in the files that you have? Or is that, you know, like what? Are we going by the files that you have, or are we going by what's actually happening? And again, like I said, I might just be paranoid. And I want you to take this with a little bit of a grain of salt here, because I know we're all on high alert and we're all freaking out, okay? But somebody's got to tell people about this. Something just doesn't feel right. And I hope, and like I said, it's very well possible everyone's going to wake up tomorrow and everything's going to be fine. And that's what I pray for. I hope to God that that's exactly what happens. But knowing how desperate this administration is to find a reason to get boots on the ground to open up this strait, and knowing everything I know about how untrustworthy the FBI is and the fact that they're involved. It's a sad day in America when the FBI comes to help and you question whether or not they're there to help you or if they have been infiltrated by a foreign government and are actually not here to help you. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I want that to be clear. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying, given all the information that I know, I don't have a lot of confidence. I'll say that. I don't have a lot of confidence. And it worries me. And I'm scared. And I'm scared for those kids. And I don't want people to be so paranoid and scared that they're constantly living every day in fear. But I also don't want people to not have this information and get so comfortable that they're not paying attention. So I'm putting this here so that it's there so that it's on your mind. So it's not in the dark. So it's not getting swept under the rug. Okay? Um so if you live in Minnesota and if you have kids and you're in that school district, I would even go as far to say maybe even any school district, just Minnesota in general. If you live there and your kids are there, I would highly suggest maybe not having your kids go to school for a couple weeks. I mean, if you can afford it, I would just say like pull them out altogether and homeschool. But I understand that that's not everybody's capable of doing that. So, but if nonetheless you have the information here, do with it as you will. And Godspeed, friends. Godspeed. All right, guys, I almost forgot, but I can't forget. One of my viewers, they sent their art to my email, and it's really cool. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I think it looks super awesome. I wish I had that type of artistic ability. I do not. How cool is this, guys? How cool is that? It's Link. That's what I was like, that looks like Link. And they were like, oh, yeah, no, it looks like Link because it is Link, actually. So how cool is that? I'm going to pull up because I don't want to mess up their name. And I feel like if I don't pull it up, I'm going to mess up their name. So let me see if it's up here. I could just bring me down a little bit. There's their art. And here we go. We got Shinobi Lives. That's right. Shinobi Lives 0625. Thank you for the art. This looks amazing. I truly do wish that I had this type of talent. Unfortunately, I do not, but wow. That's great detail. Great job. So, all right, guys, with that, that's going to complete our episode for today. I will see you guys the next one. Good night.